the cloud. Okay. And hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So appreciate everybody hopping on here today. We have a few updates to share with you from, oh gosh. All right, there's more people coming. We have a few updates to share with you from national and from state. But what Missy and I talked about and we're hoping to do is to get through all of the updates in the first 30 minutes so that we have 30 minutes at the end to just have a chance to talk to each other. I think that following the elections, it may be a nice opportunity for us to kind of check in and share our thoughts, our feelings, how we're doing, ideas, if anybody has any ideas that they want to share with everybody. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So, okay, why don't we go ahead and jump in? Updates from National. So we had a couple of meetings with National yesterday. One was with all of the state chairs, and then we had a second meeting um, with Megan Kissel, the policy director, who presented to our Silicon Valley branch, which you all were invited to. So hopefully a lot of you were able to join that. So basically, the update from National is that they're anticipating that over the next couple of years, there are going to be a lot of different fights, so many fights that they're not going to be able to go after every single battle. So AAUW is going to be sticking to our core principles, working closely with coalition partners to determine the right strategy, figure out which fights are the fights to go after, what is realistic. And Megan Kissel did share with us that the tone that we're going to be seeing from AAUW is going to be intentionally mindful, may not be as forceful and aggressive as some of us would like to see, and that is going to be by design. Um, if everybody could put yourselves on mute if you're not talking, that would be great. So the main thing at this point that AAUW National has identified that they need to go after, the top number one priority is protection of public education. This is going to be the key focus area, especially in the area of higher education. And the two big fights that National is anticipating is straight ahead is the new administration is going to be shifting their focus, including Pell Grant funds, away from degree programs towards workforce development. So this is a very big area of concern that they're going to be focused on. And the other area is Title IX. We're fully anticipating that the new Title IX protections that were released in 2024 will be rolled back. So there's going to be focus on determining how other protections can be put in place for students. As far as protection of K through 12 education, this is an area that's going to be best spearheaded by AAUW at the state and local level because these decisions are made at the State Board of Education and the local school boards. So all the more reason for increased focus and emphasis on our AAUW California School Board project, which we'll be talking about a little bit more in a few slides. Additional updates from National. As far as the ERA, AAUW's stance is to urge President Biden to do everything in his power to get the ERA published. So this is an intentionally nuanced ask. It's different than calling for President Biden to instruct the archivist to publish. Reason being that the White House is hearing some legal opinions about whether the archivist can actually publish legally without Congress waiving the deadline. So that's the reason why AAUW is making the ask the way that they are. And what Megan shared with us is that if the ERA does not get published by January 20th, it's a 4-year setback, but it's not going to be dead. So it's, it's been 100 years, 4 more years. It's painful, but it's not the end of the fight. And like I mentioned, Megan did present to us yesterday the AAUW priorities in light of the elections. This was a meeting that was hosted by the Silicon Valley branch. This peer group here was invited, and I think many of you did have the opportunity to join. But if you missed it, the recording is going to be posted soon on the AAUW California website. I'm not sure yet exactly where, but as soon as we have that location, we'll publish that out in the newsletter so that you're able to find it. Any questions on those updates from National before we move on? Okay, let's
I'll ask you a
forward.
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Joy. Hi.
So, is AEW going to take a position on mass deportations?
I don't believe so at this time. And the reason is that it isn't core to the mission of advancing gender equity.
He's
Um,
blowing, that's not gonna happen. Mass.
Oh, he can't handle
No.
that.
Somebody's got a dog that they're enjoying. Perhaps it's
Mooch doesn't bark.
Sorry, Boot. They're not talking about it.
Yeah, please, can everyone mute yourself?
That was failed. Yeah, that in California. This is California.
Can people please mute so we can hear you?
You can.
Thank you.
Oh.
So Joy, hopefully that answered your question. I don't think that mass deportation is something that is something that AAUW is going to be working on at this point because it's not core to our mission of gender equity. Ginny?
Yeah, I just had a comment about the ERA. I appreciate what Megan said, and I agree. I think most of the coalition members are all on board, and we've all sent our letters to the White House. In fact, it took me a while. I finally ended up sending a text, and the letter I got back was just so ridiculous. It wasn't even funny. It didn't even respond to the question that was being posed. It was just, we're here. And this is where you write if you have a question, So on the ERA, I mean, I don't see the harm. There is enough legal ambiguity on, whether it qualifies, Biden should just publish it and let's see where the cards fall out. It's going to be a legal fight no matter what you do. I mean, at this point, and there's no chance that even a discharge petition or anything could come up for probably at least 2 years, unless, the Congress changes its shape in the next election cycle. So, I mean, to me, I don't see what we've got to lose by going ahead and having the president publish it and then just taking on the legal fight. I think the American Bar Association even came out with their legal opinion and how it did indeed qualify. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I really feel passionate about the ERA, and I think that's what we needed. I'd like to see it happen in my lifetime. So thank you.
Yeah, I hear you. And the way that Megan explained it yesterday is that the ask is going to continue to evolve and change. Right now, they're asking people to just urge him to do whatever is in his power to publish it. Once the 118th Congress leaves, then the ask is going to change to President Biden, please instruct your archivist to publish. So it's going to evolve depending on where we're at in the cycle.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by publish?
I was going to just jump in and so basically the Equal Rights Amendment was intended to be now the 28th Amendment. And so it was approved in the 1970s and it was ratified by 30
38.
38 states. And so basically this is asking Biden to instruct the National Archivist to just certify it and publish, right? The ERA as the 28th Amendment. So that's what I mean by publish. So it's been held up. And this is a tactic for getting it, certified and published into the Constitution.
Missy, how this is because I'm a little bit younger. I was born in the mid '60s, but what was the impediment? I just thought we would. This is the first I've heard of that. I actually am thinking. I don't. Procedurally, is it just he just waives the process and just says it's an amendment? Like, how does that happen? I mean, I don't. You get to constitutional law here, but I'm really interested in that.
No. So an amendment has to be approved by 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states. In order for it to then, be certified and published as an amendment, this was in the 70s, but it's an amendment. It actually met all the qualifications based on constitutionally how amendments are supposed to actually be created, but hasn't been added to the Constitution. And that is like a bunch of procedural wrangling that is beyond me about how it's happened through the years. I know where it is now, but I don't know all of the nuances of the wrangling through the years. So if anybody else wants to speak to that, that is right.
Well,
Please do.
the problem is that basically it was that Virginia, I think, was a 38th state, and that was in 2019. There were 3 states to go, and the Virginia was the last one in 2019. When they successfully passed the Congress level with the constitutional amendment, the 2/3, it was written as a preface to the actual amendment that there was a certain deadline that this had to happen, that the ratification had to happen. It's attached to the amendment, but it's not part of the amendment. So part of the legal problem is people are saying, well, you expired the deadline date of when it had to be ratified so that it doesn't count anymore. But that's not the case. And there is legal precedent to show that this has happened with other constitutional amendments. I think one of the very first ones they call was one of the early amendments took 200 years to ratify, and it was finally included in the Constitution. So, legally, that's one of the impediments, and why, and then you get down to the fact where even if it does, I don't know, at this point, there could be legal challenges that maybe the Supreme Court would take up, saying that it's based on the right to privacy. That was the contention when they developed this. And even former Justice Ginsburg agreed with that and said, we shouldn't have done it that way. We should start all over again and start it based on, what was it, equal protection or something? I think that's what she was saying. So, I mean, it's just gotten to be such a mishmash over the years, but it's still there. And a lot of the public, about 75% of the public, thinks it's a law already. I mean, they don't even know that it's not.
Thanks,
Anyway,
Jenny.
We have three people that have been patiently waiting. So Linda, then Sina, then Jocelyn. Linda, go ahead.
This is also relating to the Equal Rights Amendment. And it seems like there's a movement. I got an email about encouraging everyone to send a postcard on December 10th about publishing the ERA now, and then following up with around December 15th with a email message and a call. So if everyone, and in the end it says, we have the power, and if hundreds of thousands of us, maybe millions of us, urge Biden to act, he may just do it. He cares about his legacy, and this could only enhance it. So
And Linda, is that green postcard that you're referring to? That bright green one?
I don't see a postcard. I got it in an email. And it
Okay.
just, it talks about the whys about Virginia, et cetera, and how that however several, that it was determined that a time limit for constitutional amendments was itself unconstitutional. So all that remains in order to make the ERA part of the Constitution is for the president to request. Now, I assume there is a difference of opinion about this, but I agree that we should do this. And if we do it in a kind of a organized way where they're presenting, that they get a whole bunch of postcards all kind of at the same time. And then right after the postcards get there, they get an email message as well as a call.
Thanks, Linda. Sina?
Yes, I'm switching now to the school issue. And I know I spoke yesterday on chat with this, but my concern is this. Yes, it's a state and local public school system. I know that. But when you consider there are federal programs, key federal programs, if not the Department of Education, but other funding such as special ed and so forth, then it becomes a national issue. And also, I was trying to, I don't know if I succeeded, but public schools or K through 12, if the student is not equally instructed, in other words, if the school facility is not equal, if they don't have enough or any AP classes, they're not going to get into college so easily. So to think that equity starts at the college level, yes, there's equity as far as admissions, but if the student is not prepared at the high school, there's a direct line with that, and at all levels, you know, elementary school and so forth. So my concern is more of, I understand they're not going to take a direct action, but I hope they take it when it's a federal education issue. But also they giving stronger verbal support to us at the different state and local levels. Because we know there are a lot of national organizations such as Moms for Liberty that are national, that are funding across the nation for state and local elections. And they've been very successful. We've been involved at the local level in California. Many states are not as active, and we weren't exactly as successful as we wanted to be also. So I'm really, if they can't focus on, let's say, the money end of it, but if our national can come out with strong wording saying public, you know, Department of Education, you know, we need that, and we need federal funding for the different programs, and we need to support our state and local school boards, but it has to be a stronger message. I'm concerned that we're not going to do that, because in 2 years, I mean, you know, where I live, as you guys know, 4-1, religious right has taken over the school board, 4-1. Next door, 3-1. Next door to that, 3-1. And so what you're looking at is, in spite of our efforts, a lot more has to be done. It probably has to be done more strategically. I learned a lot of lessons this time out. Look at your population, see where they're at, and then back candidates who would be acceptable in the population. And in other words, in a very conservative area, you want somebody who is strong for education, but not looking for other issues.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned that in 2 years, if we just rely on the state and local, and the national doesn't take a very proactive stand supporting state and local as well as national, it's going to be even a worse disaster.
Thanks, Sina. I think that's really valid feedback. And I think that it's important for us to get that to national so that they hear us. And, you know, we have the right channels to do that because Kathy, of course, in addition to heading up the school board project, is also a key part of the national policy committee. So let's talk offline and get with Kathy, and then we can get that feedback up to national so that they hear us.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jocelyn.
Thank you. I just want to quickly go back to the ERA and review what's happening. So, as was mentioned, it was passed in the 70s. Congress needed 2/3 of the votes, which they did, and then as explained, you need 3/4 of the states to ratify it, which they finally got Virginia just a few years ago. With that being said, the issue here, I personally, from what I know of the legislation, it's not so much on Biden. You actually need Congress to remove the deadline to ratify the amendment into the Constitution, because when this was passed in the 70s, Congress put a time limit of 7 years for states to ratify this amendment. And while, as we know, we're way past those 7 years. And so I just want to be strategic about this. And instead of talking to the wrong person or targeting the wrong person, what we really should be doing is targeting Congress with the remaining 1 month that we have, or however long, is to have them remove the deadline to ratify the ERA. And there are legislation that it's actually bipartisan legislation that have been introduced both in the Senate and in the House for years after years after years to remove the deadline. And then this year I just looked it up, and Ayanna Pressley just reintroduced it again. So anyway, I just want to make sure that we're being strategic about it and that we're going about, the best way to go about this.
Thanks, Jocelyn. And you're right. And I think that that's another part of what AAUW is trying to do is go after Congress. And there was a big focus on trying to get that discharge petition passed
Right.
so that they would then be able to have a floor vote on HJ Resolution 25. Unfortunately, that discharge resolution vote was voted straight along party lines. All the Democrats voted in favor of it. All the Republicans voted against it. So the discharge resolution didn't pass, and they weren't able to get the vote out in front of the floor. So that's where it's at. But I think they're going to keep trying that avenue as well as urging Biden to. If they can't get the deadline waived, maybe they get him to just publish it. So I think they're attacking it in a two-pronged approach.
Amy, I thought the discharge petition never made it because they needed 218 and they had 214. So
Yeah.
I don't know that they ever got to vote on the thing because the discharge
right.
petition was unsuccessful.
Yep, because the discharge petition went straight along party lines.
Right.
And all the Republicans voted against it. So because they couldn't pass the discharge petition,
Right.
they couldn't get the ERA onto the HJ resolution on
Right.
25 onto the floor.
Yeah.
So okay, Nancy, hey. Nancy.
Hi.
Hey.
Just quickly going back to the person who mentioned the green postcard. How I didn't hear how all the rest of us are going to be able to know what she's talking about or get access to that email or whatever she was referring to.
Yeah, there is an email that was being circulated with this postcard. Let me find that. And I think a little bit later on in this call, I'll have a chance to go look for it, and then I'll drop it in the chat so that you all have access to that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, so now we have a few updates from state. We'll start with election updates in California. So AAUW California had supported 4 ballot propositions. 3 of them, Prop 2, 3, and 4 passed. So that was to build and fix schools, the right to marry, and the climate bond. Those all passed. Unfortunately, Prop 32, which we supported to raise minimum wage to $18, failed. We also provided head-to-head voter guides for 7 competitive House races. And of those, we actually did quite well. 5 of those races were won by candidates who were aligned with AAUW's values. And 2 of those went to the candidate who was not aligned with our values. So overall, that was, pretty successful. And just want to give a big thank you to everybody for your work to educate your communities with information about these ballot propositions and these congressional races. Nancy, is your hand up from before, or do you have a new comment? Okay.
Sorry, I just lowered it, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. All right. Just a quick update to let you know. Thank you, everybody who completed the survey for the public policy priorities updates. We received 682 responses. That was great. So the next steps, the subcommittee that is focused on these public policy priority updates is going to be reviewing all of the responses that came in from everybody around the state, making their recommendations for proposed changes. And those are going to go to the board for approval in March. And then the final PPPs will go out to all membership for a vote in April, after which we will have new informational cards in May. And also wanted to mention that in addition to the updates that we're doing to the state PPPs, National is also in the process of updating National's PPPs. So they are going to be sending that information out in January with an open comment period that will be open for a month. So look for that in your inbox in January, and you can weigh in on your thoughts about National's PPPs. Lobby Days 2025 is scheduled for Tuesday, April 8th for in-person meetings in Sacramento, and Wednesday, April 9th for Zoom meetings. So there will be a Lobby Days interest survey that's going to be coming into your inbox in early January. So please look for that. And we encourage everybody to participate. This is a really fun and impactful event. Missy, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but in the interim, we've been able to create and launch a test balloon of an internship. So we partnered with one of my departments at Cal State Long Beach to create a gender and public policy internship. We advertised the internship. We created basically an agreement, a partnership between the university and AAUW California so that we could host an intern. And instead of hosting a paid internship, because we partnered with a specific university and department, we're able to create an internship that gives the student who we select course credit for working with the Public Policy Committee. So it was, we baked it quickly, and so it was only open for 2 weeks, but we ended up with 29 applicants, which was pretty good for a 2-week window. We're reviewing the applications now, and we're hoping to interview next week or the first week of January to have our first gender and public policy interns start in January 2025. And I'll just note that there was a lot of interest in this, especially as we advertised it right after the election. And the students looked at the legislation that was our priority legislation last year and are very interested in this, and now are very interested in also participating in our lobby days. This is an excellent, a nice shining beacon in the discussion of all of this other stuff that is kind of negative. So I will take any questions that you have about it, but we'll see how this works, and maybe this allows a pathway for different internships.
Thanks, Missy. A few updates on the school board project. There is going to be a new survey coming out in January to assess the results of the school board races. And we ask that you please complete that survey because your feedback is really important to help us to understand what is happening in the school boards around the state. We have a new collaboration with an organization called the Public School Defenders Hub. They're a 501c3, and they've got a large number of programs and resources. And we're going to be undergoing a monitors and observers training that this organization puts on. So the school board project committee is going to be going through that training this month. And the goal is, if all goes well, to open up that training to all of the AAUW members around the state in the first quarter of 2025. And the focus of all of that, and the new focus of the school board project, is going to be to monitor the school boards to ensure that they are in compliance with California law. Okay, just a quick update here on Title IX. Kathy Harper, who's the chair of the school board project, she was going to be here today, but she has a power outage in her area and she couldn't make it. So she has put together a presentation on Title IX, the new 2024 revisions to Title IX and how they impact AAUW's values and public policy priorities. And she had actually put this material together and presented it to the Five Cities Pismo Beach branch. She has now offered to present it to our peer group. So that is going to be happening on January 9th. You are all invited, so please register at this link here. And also, Kathy has offered that if anybody is interested in having her present this material to your branches or your IBCs, she is happy to do that as well. And there are likely to be, new updates coming in the next few months as the administration turns over. Okay, does anybody have any questions about any of that before we move into Q&A and open discussion?
I mean, not a question, but can you make your presentation today available to all of us, or is it already? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. And we can, let's see, what's the best way? I can come out of here and drop into the chat where the link is, where you can find it.
Okay.
Pam?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Pam from Petaluma. I was particularly interested in the Title IX information, and it went by faster than I could put it in my cell phone because it said register here, and I wasn't sure that I could do that from my my computer. Whether
You,
I
sh-
was,
you should be able to. So I
Oh,
dropped
yes, I
the
did.
registration in
And-
the chat, and
And thank you. No, it was, I just wasn't fast enough to hit the here button. So I do see that I got a link. Thank you. Jean Reed from the Petaluma branch has had a robust group in Petaluma that has contacted all the Petaluma City schools to find out who their Title IX officers are, which sometimes serves as an education that they should have one. But this is our second or third year, and so they're a little bit more expectant. But I'd be very interested in hearing what other ideas are. We publish a list, and I've noticed that websites have pretty bold Title IX links on their opening page. I can't say that we can take full credit for that, but maybe. Thank you.
that's excellent. And I hope you don't mind, but as you're talking, I'm taking some notes, because if your branch and is doing something that other branches might want to also do, then I'm just taking some notes to give us all some ideas for taking action. Title IX, we actually tried to write a piece of legislation that would do a little bit more with Title IX enforcement in K through 12. It's a big kind of it's a big subject area, and it's something that needs to have a lot more attention. And so this is most certainly what you're doing, Pam, is excellent, and I'll make sure I write that down. But yeah, if there's anything else that other folks are doing right now, please share that too. Jean, do you have something specifically
Yes.
about Title IX?
Exactly.
Yeah, go
Here,
ahead.
5 Cities Pismo Beach, Kathy made the presentation for us and put together the information. and it's excellent. And I think it would behoove any group to pull it up and review it with your branch. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. And I actually dropped that into the chat here so you all can find the article that we posted on the website that has Kathy's presentation linked on there. And like I mentioned, there are probably going to be new updates coming. So let Kathy know if you would like her to present to your branches and IBCs. Myra?
Yeah, I had I have a question. What university are you partnering with for the interns?
California State University Long Beach, which is my employer.
Thank you.
No problem. And I'm happy to talk to other folks about the process of partnering. And like, there are a lot of possibilities. So maybe this is also something we think about doing in the spring about how you might be able to create local partnerships as well, because I know that there are a lot of departments that always have internship programs where they get class credit. So students are always looking for internships that will help them both build skills and do something good for the world. Right. Does anyone else have any questions or want to share something that you're doing or want to debrief on how you are feeling post-election? We are here to open the floor and listen. Joy, go ahead. I see your digital hand first, and then Sina, I saw your physical hand second.
So I wanted to bring up the subject of DEI, and I've tried to internalize what we talked about and what I thought decided as a group in our state committee meeting, which is to try to put all your work through the filter of DEI or equity. And I tried to do that in my local public policy committee. And it's been a little bit revealing and not in a positive way. And I was just wondering if I could get some feedback from the rest of you on it. My idea, and the other people in our committee supposedly said they agreed with it, was to try to get more members in our committee to be more reflective of the community at large. Yes. Which in our case is primarily Hispanic. And so we had a new member, and she was interested in joining our committee, but she works, and basically people were unwilling to really change the time when it was convenient for them to come to accommodate the new member. And initially they were a little bit, but when she didn't, it wasn't easy for her to accommodate what they wanted to do. Basically the response was, well, she must not be that interested in it anyway. And I know I've been in a committee in the past with a group that was primarily Latino, and there were a handful of white people who were in it also. And it was just a totally different frame of mind, because they wanted the community members to belong to the group and participate in it, because what we were doing was for them and for their schools and for their community. And the first order of business was to have the meetings when it was going to be convenient for most of the people that lived here. And, to me, this is just, it's just emblematic of why a group that's mostly composed of retired older white women might be always saying, well, I don't know why they won't join our group. I mean, I guess they just don't get into service work or service groups. And, to me, it's just really revealing of privilege because this is my nap time, so I don't want to move my meeting to 6 o'clock or, this is my dinner time and other people might just be working until 5 o'clock at night. And so, do we want to abandon DE? And I'm not accusing anybody here of any of this, but just in my own community, I'm just wondering what other people may have some thoughts about on this. Thanks.
Thanks, Joy. I saw Sina's hand. I can take that in a second, but I know Sina's hand was up, so I'll say, Sina, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and Joy and I live in the same general area. Really, and I alluded to it before, really eye-opening is that I think in certain communities, the language, the DEI language has it's been used negatively by the opposition, obviously. And they don't understand what we mean by diversity, equity. They hear the other side defining it in extreme forms. That in one of the things, obviously, is that your child is going to go into, a boy into the classroom and come out a girl, this kind of grooming or whatever it is that they're talking about. And I think knowing your population, it's a conservative population that I live in, and that the language that we should use should resonate or define exactly what we're talking about, because it's just buzzwords for them. Okay, it's a negative buzzwords that they're hearing out there from the opposition. So defining that. Interesting, I'm a member of another group, and it's a national organization of women, and a lot of teachers came to the meeting after the election. A lot of teachers. We did not see them before in this group, okay? And they are so morally, despondent. They're leaving education. One woman said that she's been threatened with being, kicked out, fired, even though she has obviously been teaching for 20 odd years. And the teachers are really feeling that, and they're also watching their language. I mean, you had teachers who were history teachers not teaching about slavery, other than the very superficial aspect of it. Or segregation, or that today there may be instances of also discrimination. So the kids are getting this kind of language or lack of this knowledge. And I think I like when you said that, Amy said, our role will be to monitor what the districts are doing that in violation, not so much, especially if your board is a 401 board, putting yourself through the torture of being, yelled at. Nobody's going to listen to you anyway, but monitor. As soon as you see they're passing a resolution that possibly is a violation of the state framework or laws or whatever, doing that. But it's really been hard here. A lot of, almost like we should send out supporting, I don't know what, notes to our teachers, something to support the union, something to support the teachers, because they are really at the center of this. And there was, a lot of these women were just, distraught. So.
Thanks, Sina. And I'll just say two things quickly. First, to Joy's point, right? Diversity is like, reflecting originally, right? And the conceptualization is reflecting the local community in which you exist, and right. And you can't have diversity without inclusion and belonging, right? There's lots of studies that support this. And so you need to think about it as like a package of diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity, and think about all of those things at the same time. To Sina's point, and I would also say yes, right? DEI is the bit of a boogeyman right now, right? You know, it historically you have to change the name sometimes in doing social justice work. We had to change social justice to diversity, equity, and inclusion and diversity management for a while, right? That change came also because it was considered quote unquote apolitical to change to diversity management. Now diversity management has become politicized, and so we'll just change the name and we'll keep on going, because that's basically the kind of thing that needs to happen. But there is a lot of, worry around this and around things that can be said and can't be said. And maybe part of what we do is also, I really like that Sina sending just send a note, like hang in there, right? To some teachers. And we can also talk about resources for how to talk about things, which is something that I do in my other job. And I will give you one more thing, and that is that the best way to sell DEI to people that right now think it's buzzwords is to be able to make a business case, because DEI makes most businesses money. And so that's something that I use in my other kind of work as well, that you would like to make a human rights case, but you can also make a financial case. And if that's what needs to happen, then that'll make it a lot easier to do the DEI work we all know we need to do. So I will ask Nancy. I think I saw your hand next.
Yes. I don't even know how to begin, but first of all, I'd like to know where the lady who just spoke, the two ladies who just spoke, where are they from? Because my phone doesn't show anything but their face.
You mean Sina and Joy?
The last two people who spoke, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sina and
Yeah.
Joy.
Yeah, Riverside, and I know Joy is over in Fallbrook, which is next door, but Riverside County, Temecula in particular is
Okay.
the city, but it's all of Riverside County tends to have the issues, but Temecula and yes.
Yeah, well, we have, I'm really glad both of you raised this. Here in Marin, we have, same thing, AAW is all older white women. And we do have, big area of Spanish cultural community, and we have a big area of a Black community. And, I would like to see DEI and in the education push that you're talking about, I would definitely like to see some more specifics, because I am so frustrated. I mean, we went to talk to the superintendent of schools last year, primarily asking him to help us out with getting more teachers to recommend girls for tech track. But a lot of other things came up. And the current board here in Marin, person who was with us at the meeting, just thought it was such a wonderful, successful meeting. And, we're talking about DEI and everything. And it was a complete BS, in my opinion. There was no actual meat to it. Nothing happened. It all just like, oh, look, this is just like a light brush over, oh, we met with the superintendent of schools. Well, so what? I'd like some real meaty resources and action items and what we should do and how how we can actually improve DEI and dealing with the education system in our community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Nancy. And in my other job, I also do a podcast, and we are literally recording a podcast next week about how, like, not on education, but like things that count as DEI work that you might not think of as DEI work, which makes it a lot easier to think about things that are actionable. And so I'm happy to share that with you all if you like it as another resource. But I'll add to the list like actionable DEI items, because that's a major critique of DEI work, is that that a lot of it is training based and not enough of it is action based to actually change systems and structures. And so there's a lot that can be done and that we can talk to you about. But I would say, you know, a place to start, well, hopefully we have at least can listen to my podcast as a first step resource, and we'll put it on our list.
Okay, yeah, because like the woman from Petaluma was talking about how their public policy or committee was actually sending out notes to all the school board members to asking them, you know, who is their DEI, I mean, their Title IX officer,
Right.
and what are they doing? You know, things like that. If we could just have a central source of information from all the different branches of, look, these are some actionable items that we do and that we have done, and this is how you do it, and this is the questions you ask. I mean, I just would be so helpful, because otherwise I feel like the whole thing is just kind of meaningless, at least in my branch.
Yeah. And thanks for that, Nancy. And that's one of the, we're going to save like 2 minutes. And I've been compiling actually a list of everything we've been talking about here, because what Amy and I have been talking about is, you know, how we create a resource for all of you so that you can both share your resources and we can give you the things that you need to take action to kind of push back against a lot of the things that will probably amplify in the next year.
Okay, and if I could just say one other thing, and then the other big area that I would really, really appreciate feedback on from other branches is exactly how do they use social media, and how successfully, you know, do they tag, do they do this, do they do that? You know, our social media person literally is just like a repeat of the newsletter. It's just pictures of what our branch has been doing. That's it. I mean, there's no tagging, there's no nothing. It's just like, why bother? You know, there must be a more effective way of handling our social media so that we're not only reaching out to the community, whether it's the Spanish community or the Black community or just anybody, to bring in new members, number one, and number two, to let people know about AAUW. Nobody in the community looks at our social media page. It's just for our branch.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, that is an entire subdiscipline of communications, is social media and marketing, is social media management, social media marketing. But there are some tips for thinking about how you manage your social media differently. I don't know what a good free resource would be, but I can like put that on the list of things that we need to start compiling.
Thank you. Yes, I would appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks, Nancy. OG, you've been very patient. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I really appreciate all these perspectives, so thank you all for that. On DEI, because I double as the DEI coordinator for our branch this year. And what I put out in our latest monthly newsletter, for what it's worth, and maybe many of you have done this as well, but I linked to the page on the state website with the DEI strategic plan. And I said, so this is what's been mapped out for us at the state level. So it falls to us at the branch level to bring it to life. So that's what I'm interested in having a conversation about. So I've scheduled a Zoom. Anybody in the branch who wants to participate, it's early January, I welcome it. And that's what I want to talk about. I highlighted some of the main talking points off of that. I mean, it's very succinct, what Lata Morte has put together. It's great. So I highlighted some of that and I incorporated that into this little paragraph that I did for our newsletter. And then I gave a link to that page and I said, here's where we're going. And so as far as I'm concerned, it's non-negotiable. It's direction from the state board. And so let's figure out how we're going to make it happen. The other thing that I would observe is just not to believe the obvious, but how embedded DEI stuff is in public policy. So whenever we go to our school board meetings, one way or the other, we're bringing up diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations, right? In terms of, as Sina and others have mentioned here, say targeting of trans students. And that LGBTQ plus students do not feel safe and welcome and as though they belong in some of our communities. And they themselves have made public comments at some of our school board meetings to this effect, and we have to be responsive to it. So it's all of a piece, right? It's all intertwined. So that's another thing that we've been trying to message is the interplay between DEI and public policy, and that, you know, we want to work on it in a holistic way. Thanks.
Thanks, OG. And, you know, that's something that that Amy and I can definitely try to think about how to make that as obvious as possible, because, you know, I'm a professor, but I also do DEI work, right? That is my other job. And you know, part of my expertise in the other job that I do is the fact that I do public policy work. So it's right, and am involved in legal studies. So absolutely, public policy work and DEI work go hand in hand, and we'll, you know, Amy and I can think about how to, you know, make sure that that is out front, and give you the tools and resources you need to make that work happen at the branch level. Joy?
Thank you. I just want to throw out one thing that I do plan on doing, and that is to try to work with other groups and maybe be able to have a network or a coalition in some of our public policy work here in Fallbrook with other groups such as NAACP, LULAC, and another group called VOSIS. Work on some of these shared interests that we have. Thanks.
Thanks, Joy. And I think too on that front, right, that speaks to where we open this up, and that is that it's really important to be good allies, to actually like listen to, involve, communicate with any community that that, you know, you're looking to actually help support and advance, and make sure that you're doing the work that that community wants and needs, rather than the work that you think that they want and need. So thank you for that, Joy. I think that's a coalition building is so critical right now, and I think that's really important. Rhonda?
I'm just curious because listening to what DEI action items, we do like a monthly, we do a monthly field trip to, you know, usually a restaurant or something, not always. It could be an event or a festival or something that celebrates DEI. Is that sort of like, what are we, like, what? It just seems like that. I mean, it's a celebration usually. It's like we go to an LGBT plus event. We're not there on a booth, but we go there. Is that just like a whitewash of this, or is there other plans that people actually do that? I'm sort of confused because I only really know what my branch does, but it sounds like it's falling short.
I think that there's an important step in doing DEI work, and the first step is, you know, always raising cultural awareness and raising personal awareness and understanding yourself and understanding, right, similarities and differences between groups of people, and that is one step, and that's an important step in order to initiate change. But the next step needs to be, how do you then embed that change in systems, right? Because if it sticks with individuals or it never goes beyond awareness raising, then you're awareness raising forever. And that's why systems don't change and like marginalization persists. So I would say you're not whitewashing it. However, if you feel like that's the only thing you're doing and everybody's gotten to this plateau, then you'll need to then take the next step in action items to think about systemic change and sustainable change. And so that's what I would say. This is a great conversation. Amy, I think I can, am I able to share the screen? I am, right? I will share our last slide. Nancy, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you phrased it the way you did, Melissa, because today I was at the Marin Civic Center, and they had a wonderful art show of homeless people. Just their pictures and their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought to myself, boy, I'd really like to do something with our branch and have them come and see this. But then my second thought immediately following was exactly what you just said, is I am sick and tired of awareness raising. I don't want to waste my time doing that anymore. I need to put something else added to that. Of course, that just happened today. So but I need to do, if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to waste my time putting it in our newsletter, I need to come up with some actionable item. And I love the way you phrased that. And it's help me, put it together in my mind as, one of the primary functions that I'm going to be doing for this next year is just, if there's no actionable item, I'm not interested.
Thanks, Nancy. So I'll wrap us up with some of the kind of Amy, would you mind sharing the slides? So as part of our discussion, we were thinking about taking action generally, about taking resources for taking action. We said against Project 2025. We can also, based on this discussion, think about this as taking action to really solidify the kind of relationship that exists between public policy and doing DEI work. And a lot of the things that we advance are probably going to come under attack. And so how can we think about taking action in ways that are empowering to us and to the people that we seek to advance in the world? So there's the final slide. We just said there's a lot of focus areas, right? And, as I noted, I have 2 other jobs, and so we're trying to do this in a way that we provide you with the resources, but there are a lot of different ways that we can take action. So Amy and I are putting our heads together to figure out how we can compile resources to make sure that you have access to them and we can share them out with you. So we do, and based on our discussion, right, I gave you a list of resources that that we can start compiling that are new resources based on what you all are doing and where you want to focus as it relates to our mission, whether narrowly or broadly. We have a letter that Lorinda sent us that is in support of DACA, right? Which is from the very beginning of the meeting, we had someone ask about National's position on mass deportations, right? So technically it's not immediately, right, smack in our public policy priorities, but oh my goodness, right? Mass deportation is just about human rights and social justice, but it's also about economic security for so many families in California, in the United States, right? So if DACA is your issue, right, and if that's something you want to focus on, then there are resources that we can create and provide, and I'd say that does fit in our mission in California for sure. Right. But I listed some of the things that we came up with today as new resources, and we can think creatively about how we create those and share them out with you. But we also just wanted to think about our existing projects and initiatives in AAUW and how we can round those out. And the more folks that can help with things like public policy education, please jump on board with me, because right, it's a lot of things that that can happen, but right, it's going to have to be collective effort, and we'll think about how we can make that more accessible for everyone. But the school board project, lobby days, the legislative actions that we take that are DEI work, policy education, which is really important. So we can add to this list, but I want you to know that we're thinking about how we can make this work for all of us without burning out Amy and I, and without burning out all of us in all of the many different areas and actions that we can take. Ginny?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out for something that I'm doing next week with my local United Nations Association chapter. It has to do with immigration and what's probably going to be happening. We have a student-led group, which I am very impressed with. They belong to one of the Model UN clubs that are in some of our schools in the Valley. And this young woman, as a result of being in this group for several years, she's a senior, has started a sort of her own organization. I don't think it's at nonprofit status at this point, but she has taken it upon herself and some of her cohorts, her students, and they've created an organization called CLIP. I think it's called Creating Legal Immigration Pathways. And they are meeting with undocumented individuals who contact them, and they have been trying, their marketing to get out their information. They have hours on Thursday evening and Saturday, and they provide basic resource information for people who now are, very, very afraid of what's going to happen, and they can get them, help them to fill out paperwork. They can tell them, what steps they need to do this, to file this, what form. They don't give legal advice. They do have an attorney that they're working with, and if they feel that that could be used, they refer them to that person. And so from that aspect, we're going to have her talk. And then also an immigration attorney who I've known for many, many years, who will come on and kind of give his comment on what he sees might be happening and how it might play out. So if anyone's interested, it's on Zoom. It's at 7:00 on Tuesday night. I can send the flyer to you and Amy. And if you want to distribute to our members, we'd be glad to have you join us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we can also post it. We can add it to these slides if you send it to us, because we can modify the slides. So we can add it there as well. And this is another thing that we're just letting you know that we're struggling with, is the distribution, like the way that we distribute all of these things. So as we're talking, I'm just throwing out there that I'm thinking I might just create, like we did with the bill tracker, like a Google sheet. So the more things that we can link to, right? There's just like one central hub. It's like, need resources about this tab, link, read these. And then that way it's something I can modify, and it's something that you all can check. So that's my first pass idea. We'll see what I can do with that. But Ginny, in this instance, please send the flyer and we'll make sure it gets out to everyone.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Fantastic. Myra?
I have a question about the last slide. When you send out the slides, is it just as easy to click on the DACA underline to get to the Google Doc?
Yep.
From slides?
Yep.
Perfect.
All the links on the slides are active. That's what we Amy is the creator of the slides and always does a fantastic job linking everything in there. So it's everything you need, one-stop shop.
Okay, I know DEI stands for something. What's the B, the like boy after the DEI?
It means belonging. Sorry, that's on me. The acronyms are there are a number of things that you see in acronyms. The B stands for belonging. If there's an A in any of the acronyms, it stands for accessibility. Some of them have a J in them that stands for justice. Some of them have a C and that stands for culture.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Then I will say thank you for all of your insights and all of your hard work. We appreciate you so much, and we just hope that we can be a good kind of hub for support for all the work that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you. And we will not see you again until Thursday, February 6th, but we'll send out some correspondence about any of the resources that we start compiling and putting together, and we'll make sure you get Ginny's flyer. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Wishing you all happy holidays.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.